Now listen here. I want a nice clean fight. Keep the metaphors above the belt. You've each chosen a weapon. Western Lane, you've chosen a squash racket. The bee sting, you went for bare fists. Stick to those. Now, to your corners.
Welcome back to The Prophecy, the only show where I spell out the coming apocalypse in code. I'm your host, High Priest Montgomery T. Hoot. It's the last week of the book of shortlist, and you know what? I'm glad it's over. Not that all the books have been bad, but I'm looking forward to reading something outside the Booker sphere of influence. For all the judges waxing about there being no such thing as a typical Booker book, the 6 that made it onto the shortlist all ended up tasting a bit samey, like how every meal tastes the same when you cover it in ketchup. Almost by definition, the Booker books need to be emotionally heavy, which again has me wondering how anyone can be expected to read 170 books in 5 months and give a measured and reasonable opinion. I'm looking forward to reading something with a lighter tone, something silly with some escapism, which is why I'm jazzed about my Halloween episode next week, so tune in for that, where I'll be using my blinks to reveal the exact date of the end times. Western Lane, the longest I've ever thought about the game of squash. Christ, I didn't exactly come out swinging with that one. But what else can I say about Western Lane? If it had a controversial final chapter where the main character weighs in on the Israel-Palestine conflict, then I could say it's that book with the hot takes. But it isn't, so I can't. If a team of writers, literary professionals, psychologists, publishers, and CIA analysts packed into a room to design the most unobjectionable book known to man, then Western Lane would be the result. The story, as it is, goes thusly. British Indian author insert Gopi, 11, deals with her grief after the death of her mother by throwing herself into squash. Her father starts off as a King Richard type, pushing her and her sisters to train, but kind of gives up on this as depression takes hold, which I guess makes sense given the circumstances. Along the way, Gopi gets her crush on for a fellow squashist? For a fellow squashman named Jed, who comes to see her play in the big national championship, where she wins against the odds. Now, I know what you're thinking, and you're right. This is exactly the same plot as the first High School Musical, only with no musical theatre, no world-class dance routines, and no Zac Efron. So what's the point, I hear you bleat? Is it at least one of those stories which makes up for a basic plot with beautiful writing, or interesting characters, or a grooving mid-2000s soundtrack? To which I say, sort of, I guess? I've seen other reviews call this a tender, graceful novel, deliberate and intentional, to which again I say, yeah? So it's another dud. Toss it into the pit with Study for Obedience and see who eats the other one first. Not so fast. Because for all that, I didn't hate Western Lane. There are some fairly well written elements, and the style is clean and legible. Like I said, unobjectionable really is the word. It's not long enough or pretentious enough for me to really get a good rage going. If a friend, relative, or probation officer declared this as their favourite book of the year, I wouldn't jump right away to arson. But at the end of the day, I ask myself, had I known what was in store, would I still have read this book? I can't in good conscience say yes. The second person is making quite the comeback this year. First there was If I Survive You getting jolly excited and doing all the points of view, and now here's the bee sting staring out at you. The two books are frightfully similar as it happens. Both follow one family with flashbacks to the parents' past, both drift around the 2008 crash, both fiddle about with points of view. Long lost brothers on the opposite side of the Atlantic, two sides of the same book looking at the mirror. Sorry if my metaphors have gone a little bit mixed this week. These Booker books have left me sort of fried. I mean, how many deep revelations about injustice and the nature of being can one person have inside a month? Wait, wasn't I meant to be talking about a book? Oh, right, The Bee Sting, the longest of the shortlist, possibly because of which is also the least experimental with its style. Aside from the aforementioned second-person switch-up, it's cozy third-person the whole way, which is refreshing in a way, letting the story speak for itself without trying to dazzle us with glittery sentence structure and the like. So how about that story? It's primarily about mistakes echoing through people's lives. At points, I wondered if it was trying to make some point about climate change or gender politics, for the amount some characters talk about those topics, but I quickly realised that all that belongs in the character development bucket. Really, we're here for the errors. To it, we follow the Barnes family in small-town Ireland. Daddy Dickie, Mummy Imelda, daughter Cass, and little PJ. And, in brief, each fuck-up. Sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes monumentally. And the bee sting looks at the repercussions. Lord does it look at them. Which brings us to my first criticism, the length. Yes, maybe I feel differently about this if I wasn't rushing to finish the book before the review, but some sections drag on well after the point has hit you between the eyes. Having said that, I didn't hate the style. Some of the more flowery sections fall completely flat. I have no idea what the description sautéed shadows is meant to convey, but these sections are kept mercifully brief. But the real strength lies in the characters. The Bee Sting understands people, how good intentions can lead to bad outcomes, how self-loathing can sour relationships, how moments of weakness can lead to lifetimes of dissatisfaction. No, maybe the overall story is nothing to shout from the rooftops about, but the Barnes family is brought to life in a vividness not found elsewhere in the shortlist. But is it enough to knock Prophet Song from its perch? God damn it, Larry, work on your cues. How I how I ahed, how I procrastinated so I could have more time to decide. Come on then. In last place, coming as no surprise, it's Study for Obedience. Pretentious, boring, redeemed only by its brevity. What more can one owl say? An absence is bad doesn't recommend a book, and that's exactly what Western Lane is. Not bad, but without anything that makes a book memorable. It's just a soft puff of air. Not unpleasant, but entirely forgettable. A surprise in fourth place. That isn't to say that I hated If I Survive You. Some beautiful writing kept the thing afloat, but I just can't rate it any higher with its choppy story and tentative, almost nervous style. Out of all the authors, however, Escoffery's the one I'd like to see more from the most, for whatever that's worth. No, I didn't like the characters, and yes, the ending was as shocking as a lukewarm bath, but gosh darn it if I didn't love this Otherton's vignettes. They were vivid and powerful, and sometimes a few inspiring scenes is all you need. The Bee Sting is one of the few books on the list to be of consistent quality throughout. No, the story didn't set my trousers alight, but that wasn't what it was about. It was about people and their lives going slowly astray, so it's a good thing that it absolutely nails the complexities of its four main characters and all their frustrating lovability. This is hardly going to come as a shock to anyone who saw last week's review, where I took up some of this Otherton's time to pour more saliva over it, but why qualify it? Prophet Song is a damn fine book with both powerful vignettes and developed characters, all wrapped up with a satisfying story. Give it a go if you're looking for an experience as satisfying as it is depressing, like visiting a local brothel.